And why not, right? We could also raise the first white kid in America to win the spelling bee. And then with the second kid, the younger one, my wife and I adopted the second kid. And most people think both my wife and I, we are Indian, so we obviously adopted from India. We did not. We actually adopted from Fremont. And that's a joke that wrote itself. I did not write that joke. Okay? Because what's that? Is she Indian? Hold on, buddy. I'll get there. You're very anxious. I'm going to talk about it. Because the thing is, I used to live in San Francisco, all right? Single and happy. Then I got married. Then we had our first kid. And my wife was like, hey, where are we going to go now? And I said, look, we are not pioneers. We are not adventurers. 100,000 Indians can't be wrong. Let's go to Fremont. Right? They have paved the way for us. Let's just slide in. Which we did, and then found the baby in our backyard, so it all worked out. You know what I mean? The other thing is, before we actually did the adoption, I had no idea how adoption works. My idea of adoption was so wrong. Okay, this is what I used to think. First of all, how hard can it be? You know what I used to think? You know how you walk into a grocery store? And there's fruits and vegetables stacked nicely next to each other? Then you go squeeze a few of them. Be like, oh, this one is ripe and juicy. I like this one. Let's take this one home. That's actually what I thought. Like, you'll walk into this baby center, baby mart. There'll be some baby nicely stacked next to each other. You go squeeze a few of them. Be like, oh, this one is soft and tender. I like this one. Let's take this one home. And just scan the baby on the way, like, ching, and like, you're done. Like, how hard can it be? It's bloody hard. Did you guys know in order to adopt, you need a license? A license. Look, what do I need a license for? I'm not going around adopting babies every day. This is a one-time activity. I adopt one, I'm done. Secondly, I already have a kid. Shouldn't you need a license the first time? But no, we had to get a license. And it's a bloody long process to get the license. Took us 1 year of sitting through lectures and seminars and trainings on weekends and weeknights. At one point, it got so boring, I told my wife, why don't we just make another one? So much faster, easier, cheaper, and fun. I'm not having any fun listening to people lecture me. Let's go have some fun. We know how to do it. By the way, anyone else here adopted a kid? Yes, one person. Are you adopted or you have adopted a kid? Both? He was Jewish. All right, we got a wannabe comedian in the front. I'll get you up here next show, man. You look ready for it. You can tell the joke, then you can tell the jokes again. He's like, I was here, but I don't know what happened. I want to hear it again. Yeah, where was I? Oh, the licensing process, right? And so then there were so many other things that we learned throughout the licensing process. Like for starters, there are 2 types of licenses. There are 2 types of adoptions. 1, private. 2, public. All right. Now, private adoption is what most of us know and think about. It's when you have a very specific list of things you want in your baby. Like if my wife and I were like, look, we want a brown baby, brand new, no defects. Right, you have a very specific list, you just list those requirements down, you send that list to India, they make the baby, send it back to you in America. It's chiching the other way, all right? It's pretty easy. But my wife and I decided not to do that, so we decided to go the public adoption route, which means we had to adopt a fresh, organic, locally grown, made in America baby. Now, in the public system also, you are allowed to have preferences, right? My wife and I, we had our own preferences. My wife said, look, I would love to adopt an Indian baby. And I said, look, this is America. Indians are doing way too well in this country to give up their kids. So we are not going to find an Indian kid. So maybe the next best thing we can do, adopt a Hispanic or a Latino baby. Have like 50 shades of brown in our family. She agreed. The second criteria is the gender. And my wife said, look, we already have a girl. How about we adopt a boy? And I said, what if the boy grows up to be a girl? You have to be prepared, right? So my wife and I decided, look, if that ever happens, we'll establish some ground rules in the house. Rule number 1, our baby can use any bathroom in the house, no restrictions. And then that's the only rule. Like, why do you need rules? It's a baby, let it grow, right? And then the third and only, the last criteria that we both agreed upon was that we wanted a younger sibling, somebody who was younger than the older kid. And with that, we progressed through the adoption process, the licensing process. And as we progressed further, we discovered that majority of the kids up for adoption in America are white. And I thought this could get very interesting. Because we normally see a lot of first world white couples adopting third world babies of color. We could potentially be the first third world couple of color adopting a first world white baby. And why not, right? We could also raise the first white kid in America to win the spelling bee. You know, our little contribution to make America great again. But then we progressed further through the licensing process. And then we discovered that the chances of adoption are the highest from the county that you live in. And in the Alameda County, majority of the kids up for adoption are black. So now my wife and I started preparing for a black kid. Because during the lectures and the seminars, they would teach us things like how to raise a black kid in America. And my wife would take notes. Then she would come home, read books, watch videos. I got busy writing all the black jokes I couldn't do in America for 10 years. I was like, this is amazing. I got brand new 30 minutes. I love my non-existing black kid more already. Like, I know I'm not supposed to have a favorite, but this one's my favorite now. And then we progress further through the licensing process, all right? And then the last step, before you get your license, the last thing you have to do is they give you a big, long form to fill out. And on that form, there's everything that is possible in a child's history. And you're supposed to check everything that you're okay with and leave blank everything that you're not. And the form gets very detailed, okay? So it has things like, what about a child with a history of physical disability? And that's not a question, that's a section. And then it gets very specific. What about a child with a disability in 1 limb, 2 limbs, 3 limbs, 4 limbs, 1 eye, 2 eye, 1 ear, 2 ears, eating problem, breathing problem. The list just goes on and on and on and on. Then it gets into the child's history with mental disability and starts listing those details down. Then it gets to the child's history with abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, drug abuse. The list just keeps going on and on and on and on. And then you are supposed to check every box that you're okay with, leave empty every you are not, and then physically, in person, hand that form back to the social worker. Do you guys know how awkward it is to return an empty form? You'll be like, I'm really sorry, I had no idea what I was getting into. I think we'll just go have some fun. We know how to do that. Thank you. It's a very hard form to fill out. And so my wife and I decided, look, anything that can happen to a biologically born child, we will be okay with. So all the physical disabilities, check, 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 check. All the mental disabilities, check, 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 check. We got to the section of abuse. Physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. I told my wife, listen, we are Indians. We call that love. Check, check, check. When we checked through most boxes, the one box that we both could not check was a child with a history of drug abuse. Only because neither my wife nor I have done any drugs throughout our lives. Never. But now that we are raising 2 little kids, we are reconsidering that decision. So we filled out the form, we handed it to the social worker, and then a few days later, we got a call from a hospital in Fremont. The social worker was on the line. My wife and I were on the speakerphone, and the social worker told us that last night there was a woman who came in, delivered a baby. She couldn't keep the baby, so she left. The baby is up for adoption. Do you guys want it? And they gave us only 2 pieces of information on the form. 1, it's a girl. 2, it's Afghan. On the phone, my wife goes, "What? We found a brand new brown baby in America. Of course we're gonna take that baby. Yeah!" She was all happy, like 50 shades of brown intact. I'm in the back going, "What about my black jokes?" I don't like this baby. The first one's my favorite now. But of course, we brought the baby home, all right? We brought her home when she was 2 days old, and for the next 2 years, my wife and I couldn't sleep through the night. Which is why I nicknamed my little one the Taliban. Because I was very terrified of her, okay? I'll be very honest, very, very terrified. Because this happened way too often in the house. Both my wife and I, we are sleeping merrily in our bed. Middle of the night, I'll hear the door open. Then I hear some footsteps. Tick, tick, tick. I'm like, oh shit, Taliban's coming. Very scary. 2 years. Also, we didn't realize some advantages of adopting a baby in America, right? So the first time I realized that was the first trip we took where we had to fly. And we get to the airport, and at the counter, they ask you for your IDs. So we slip in my driving license, my wife's driving license. My older kid had a passport by then, we gave her the passport. Now the younger one, who was just adopted, had a state-issued birth certificate. There was no other documentation because we were still going through the court process. And we handed that state-issued birth certificate to the agent on the counter. She looks at it, and the name they gave the baby was SSB29. The agent looks at that, looks at the 2 of us and goes, "How techie are you?" Like, I get it, you're both Indians, but like, who names their baby SSB29? Did you conceive her while coding? She was so confused. And then every single time we had to explain to every agent at the airport going, listen, this is how it is. It was a woman who surrendered the baby. It's called a safely surrendered baby. SSB stands for safely surrendered baby. And in California, if you don't want a kid, you can hand it over to a hospital, police station, fire station, no questions asked, no charges pressed, a safe surrender as they call it. And apparently this was the 29th baby, either in the Bay Area or California. I don't remember the specific, but that's why they gave the name SSB29. And so we would explain this to the agent. Next thing we know, priority boarding. Like, this is amazing. As we are walking through the airport, we're like, goodbye, brown people, enjoy the random security checks. Yeah. That was the good part. But I also have to be honest to you, okay? There are still moments today when sometimes I really regret not having a black kid. You thought that chapter was over? No, it's not. Because here's why, okay? Here's the moment where I felt this more than ever. This happened at a store. My wife and I, with the older kid in the shopping cart, the younger one was walking, holding my hands. We get to the checkout counter. Now, when we get to the counter, the little one was so little that the lady behind the counter couldn't even see her. But she took one look at my older kid in the cart, one look at me, one look at my wife, and she goes, "Oh, she looks just like daddy." So I picked up my younger kid and I said, "Who does she look like?" And now that lady behind the counter, she looks at my younger kid, she looks at me, looks at my wife, looks at the kid again, looks at me again, looks at my wife again. Does that a few times and then she goes, "Oh no," and just runs away. And my wife looks at me very confused. She's like, "Why did she do that?" And I said, "I think she thinks you cheated on me." And I have no idea about it. I'm just going around the world like, "Hey, who does she look like?" Not like me. Why not like me? Now imagine if I had picked up a black baby. How much more fun would that be? Right? All the pranks I cannot play anymore. Like, this is what I thought, okay? I thought, listen, we adopt a black kid, we take a vacation, we go back home to India and go visit my in-laws. And when we get to their house, I just wait downstairs, send my wife and the two kids up. And I tell my wife, when you knock on the door and your parents open the door, the first thing you do is hand them the black kid and go, "Sorry, Mom, I can explain everything." Can't do that anymore. That's my only regret. But do you have kids? How many? Why didn't you have a third kid?
I have 3 grandkids.
What's that?
I have 3 grandkids.
You have 3 grandkids. He didn't want a third kid, so you made your kid have a third kid.
No, I did.
That's Indian parenting, all right? You're gonna live my hopes and dreams. You make them happen. I couldn't make them happen. You make them. It's all right. I think I'll explain why I don't have the thing for a third one. Because look, I mentioned both my wife and I willingly adopted the second kid. At this point in our lives, we are willing to put both of our kids up for adoption. Yeah. So if somebody wants 2 well-fed brown babies, see me after the show because they are in my car. You guys have been fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you.